I was driving down a long stretch of highway, the sun beginning to set, casting an amber hue over the empty road. It had been a long day, and I was eager to get home. As I glanced at my GPS, the screen suddenly blinked out. Great, I thought, of all times for my phone to die. I pulled over to the side of the road, my car sputtering and making an odd noise before finally coming to a complete stop. I sighed, hitting the steering wheel in frustration. The last thing I wanted was to deal with car trouble in the middle of nowhere, especially as the light began to fade. I stepped out of the car, hoping to get a glimpse of the engine, but with the dimming light, it was hard to see much. I was stranded. Just as I was about to pull out my phone to call a tow service, I heard the sound of an engine approaching from behind. A sleek, black sports car pulled over a few feet away. A man stepped out, looking professional in a well-tailored suit, his expression one of curiosity. "Need some help?" he asked, his voice smooth, almost too calm for someone encountering a broken-down car on a deserted road. I was about to refuse, thinking he might just be another passerby, but something in his demeanor made me reconsider. Maybe I wasn't totally out of options after all. "Yeah, if you don't mind. My phone's dead, and the car's not starting." Without saying another word, he moved toward my car, popping the hood open and inspecting the engine. His movements were deliberate, methodical, like he knew what he was doing. I stood back, watching him work, when something caught my eye. There, around his neck, a gold medallion gleamed in the fading sunlight. The chain hung loosely, its shine out of place against the backdrop of the dusty, roadside landscape. I could tell that there was something about this man, something that didn't quite add up. But I couldn't put my finger on it yet. "Everything looks fine," he said, snapping me out of my thoughts. "It's probably just the starter motor. I have a toolkit in my car if you'd like me to fix it." His offer was unexpected, but I couldn't deny that I was desperate. "Yeah, please," I said, feeling a bit uneasy, but grateful for the help. As he walked back to his car, I couldn't help but notice how he moved with a certain grace, like someone who was used to being noticed, but tried not to draw attention. There was an air of mystery about him, and it made me wonder why he was out here alone, at this hour, in the middle of nowhere. He returned moments later, holding a small black toolbox, and began working on the car without saying much. I stood nearby, trying to keep myself busy, glancing around at the quiet expanse of road and nothingness. The sound of his tools clicking against metal was oddly soothing, but also unnerving. There was something about the silence between us that felt heavy. As I watched him, my eyes wandered back to the necklace. It hung loosely around his neck, gleaming in the soft light. I couldn't shake the feeling that the medallion was more than just a piece of jewelry. The design was intricate, too detailed for something you'd find in a random store, and the chain seemed expensive. The kind of jewelry a person would wear only if they had something to hide. I wasn't a jewelry expert by any means, but I knew that this wasn't your average trinket. It had an old-world feel, almost like something you'd see in a museum. "Where did you get that?" I asked, unable to stop myself. "It looks unusual." He didn't look up from the car engine. For a moment, I thought he hadn't heard me. But then, he let out a small, amused chuckle. "Does it?" "It's a family heirloom," he said with a casual shrug, though his voice had dropped, just slightly. "Been passed down for generations." There was an odd tone in his voice, one that made me feel like I'd crossed a line by asking. But before I could say anything else, he added, "I'm almost done here." I nodded, not wanting to press him further, but the strange feeling lingered. There was something more to him than what he let on. Something hidden beneath that calm exterior. It made me wonder, was I just imagining things, or was this man really as ordinary as he appeared? The quiet between us stretched on for a few more moments before he finally straightened up, wiping his hands with a rag. "There you go," he said, closing the hood of the car with a soft thud. "You should be good to go now." I thanked him, still feeling a strange sense of unease as I started the engine. To my surprise, it roared to life, smooth and strong. Thanks, I said, glancing at him one last time. I really appreciate it. He nodded, his eyes meeting mine for the first time in what felt like ages. And in that moment, his gaze seemed almost too intense, as if he was studying me, figuring me out. I didn't know what to make of it, but I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. You're welcome, he said, his lips curling into a faint, almost unreadable smile. I didn't know if it was the lingering tension or the strange sense of recognition, but something in the pit of my stomach told me that I wasn't done with this man yet. As I pulled away, I couldn't help but glance at the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, watching me, his figure slowly disappearing into the distance. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the story behind that necklace was far from over. The next few days passed in a blur of work and routine. I tried to push the strange encounter with the man on the side of the road to the back of my mind, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something about him didn't sit right. The medallion, the way he moved, the way he watched me, all of it replayed in my mind like an unsettling movie I couldn't quite turn off. Then, just as I thought I might be able to put it behind me, I found myself driving the same stretch of highway again. It was unplanned, but a last-minute meeting had come up and the only available time for the drive was at night. The road was empty again, the vast openness stretching out before me under the soft glow of the moon. And then, there it was. The same sleek, black sports car pulled into view, approaching from behind, just like the first time. I felt my heart skip a beat. There was no way it was the same person, was it? I glanced nervously at my rearview mirror, and sure enough, I saw the same face, a little sharper now, as though he'd been on the road for a while. His eyes were locked on my car as if he was expecting me. I could feel my pulse quicken, and my hand instinctively reached for my phone, though I quickly reminded myself that there wasn't much I could do. Before I could decide on my next move, he pulled up beside me, matching my speed. I glanced over at him through the window, my breath catching in my throat when I saw the same gold medallion gleaming under the streetlights. He raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into that faint, almost imperceptible smile. I didn't expect to see you again, he said, his voice carrying over the sound of the wind rushing past. Looks like fate has a way of bringing people together. I was momentarily speechless. What were the odds that I'd run into him again on this isolated road at night? I forced myself to speak. It's a small world, I guess. His eyes never left mine, and I felt that same, unsettling feeling creeping up my spine. I wasn't sure if it was his confidence or the strange familiarity of the situation, but it made me feel exposed. Vulnerable. He seemed to sense my discomfort and chuckled softly. Relax. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just couldn't help but wonder how you're doing after our little encounter. Fine, I said, though my voice felt unsteady. Why are you out here? It's late. He hesitated for a moment, his gaze drifting to the road ahead before meeting mine again. Just passing through. You. Same, I replied, though I wasn't sure if I was telling the truth anymore. We drove in silence for a few moments. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I couldn't tell if it was the eeriness of the situation or the strange pull I felt towards him. I glanced at the medallion again, noticing the way it caught the light, and it hit me, it wasn't just any piece of jewelry. There was something deeply symbolic about it, but I couldn't place what it was. Listen, I said, trying to change the subject and break the tension, I don't want to keep you. I'm just heading home. He didn't immediately respond, but there was something in his expression that suggested he was considering my words. After what felt like an eternity, he spoke again, his tone softer, almost like he was letting his guard down. Don't be in such a rush to leave, he said. There's a lot more to life than just getting to the next place. I didn't respond. His words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning, but I couldn't bring myself to ask what he meant. He wasn't just some stranger. There was something deeply unsettling about him, something more than just his mysterious presence. As I finally turned off the highway and headed toward my exit, I glanced back in my rearview mirror. The black sports car was still there, following me, as if he was waiting for me to make my move. But I wasn't sure I could keep up with this game. I didn't sleep much that night. The encounter with the man on the highway kept replaying in my mind, like a haunting melody I couldn't shake. I kept telling myself that I was overthinking it, that it was just a coincidence. But deep down, I knew there was more to the story. There had to be. The next morning, I tried to push it out of my head. I went about my day, meeting with clients and handling the usual tasks, but my thoughts kept wandering back to the black sports car, to the man with the enigmatic eyes, and to that strange medallion he wore. It was as if it had a magnetic pull, drawing my curiosity further with every passing moment. Then, around mid-afternoon, I received an unexpected call. It was a private number. "Hello?" I answered, my voice cautious. "Is this your name?" The voice on the other end was smooth, confident, and unmistakably familiar. It was him, the man from the highway. "Yes," I replied, my stomach tightening. "Good. I wanted to make sure you were all right after our last meeting," he said, his tone calm and almost reassuring. "I know you're probably wondering why I keep showing up. Don't worry, I'm not a threat. But there's something you need to know." My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" He paused before continuing, his voice now lowered. "That necklace I wear, it's more than just a piece of jewelry. It's connected to something much bigger. I think it's time you understand what you're really involved in." I sat up straighter in my chair, my heart pounding. "What are you talking about? I don't even know you." His laugh was soft, but it sent a chill down my spine. "I think you do, more than you realize. You see, the medallion is a key. And you've just unlocked the first door." I was at a loss for words. "A key to what? What do you want from me?" "I don't want anything," he replied smoothly. "But you're already part of something. Whether you like it or not, you've crossed paths with something much larger than yourself. And I think it's time for you to see the bigger picture." I felt a cold sweat form on the back of my neck. "What are you saying? Why are you calling me?" "I need you to meet me," he said. "There's a place, not far from here. I'll be waiting for you. And when you get there, everything will make sense." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the phone, my hands trembling. Was this some kind of joke? Or was it something much darker than that? There was no way I could meet him. I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. But despite every instinct telling me to walk away, a part of me wanted to know what he was talking about. I had to know more. I glanced at the clock. The meeting he'd suggested was in just 2 hours. I could choose to ignore it, to forget it all, but I wasn't sure I could live with that decision. I couldn't bring myself to just ignore the call. Something in the pit of my stomach was urging me to find out what he meant, to uncover the truth. I had never been the type to blindly follow anyone, but there was something about him, about the way he spoke, that made it impossible to turn away. 2 hours later, I found myself standing outside an old, unmarked building. It looked abandoned, its windows darkened with grime, and the door slightly ajar, as though it had been untouched for years. The only sign of life was the sleek black sports car parked nearby, the same one I had seen before. I hesitated for a moment, the weight of my decision heavy on my shoulders. But then I remembered his words, "You've unlocked the first door." I walked up to the door and pushed it open. The creak of the hinges echoed through the empty space, amplifying the silence. Inside, the air was thick, heavy with dust and a stale, metallic scent. My footsteps were the only sound, the floor creaking under my weight as I moved deeper into the building. And then, I saw him. He was standing near the far wall, his silhouette outlined by a dim light coming from a single bulb hanging above. The gold medallion glinted in the low light, its design almost glowing with an otherworldly intensity. His expression was calm, but there was a hardness in his eyes that hadn't been there the last time I saw him. I'm glad you came, he said, his voice smooth but with an edge of something darker this time. I wasn't sure if you would, but you had to know. You had to understand. Understand what? I asked, my voice shaking despite my attempt to stay calm. He stepped forward, his eyes never leaving mine. This isn't just some chance encounter, your name. You were chosen the moment you saw me. You see, that necklace, it's not just a symbol. It's a key to something much greater, a lineage that spans generations. My heart skipped a beat. A lineage? What do you mean? He paused, his gaze flickering to the door as though ensuring no one else was listening. That medallion was created centuries ago. It belongs to a secret organization, one that's been in the shadows for far longer than anyone realizes. And now, because of you, it's time for the next phase to begin. I took a step back, a wave of disbelief washing over me. Are you saying that I'm involved in some sort of secret society? He nodded, a dark smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. You've always been involved, whether you knew it or not. You just didn't know how close you were to the truth. You see, the medallion wasn't just a gift, it was a signal. A sign that you were meant to play a part in this. And now, you've crossed the threshold. I felt my legs weaken beneath me. What does this mean for me? What am I supposed to do? He took a step closer, his presence overpowering. For now, you just have to trust me. There's a lot more at play here than you can understand. But soon, you'll see it all. You'll see everything. I wanted to back away, to run, but something about his words kept me rooted to the spot. My mind was racing, but my body felt frozen. What had I gotten myself into? And why did I feel like I couldn't escape? You're part of something much bigger now, your name. His voice was softer now, almost sympathetic. And you can't go back. You'll start to see the truth unfold before you, but only if you stay with me. For a moment, all I could do was stare at him, my mind trying to process everything he had just said. The necklace. The secret society. The lineage. It was like something out of a movie, yet somehow, it felt more real than anything I had ever experienced. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered, more to myself than to him. He gave me a knowing look, his eyes sharp. You don't have a choice. The door's already opened. Now, you have to walk through it. His words echoed in my mind, but I couldn't find the strength to argue. There was no denying it, I was in too deep now. The door had been opened, and somehow, I had crossed the threshold. The weight of what he was saying crashed down on me, but there was no turning back. Not now. He watched me carefully, his gaze piercing, as if waiting for me to make a decision. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with tension. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, trying to make sense of everything he had just revealed. A secret organization. A lineage. I didn't know what was real anymore, and I couldn't decide if I was terrified or fascinated. You don't understand what you're involved in yet, he said, his voice cutting through my thoughts. But you will. This is bigger than you can imagine. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog in my brain. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I even want to. He stepped closer, closing the distance between us, his presence overwhelming. You're already in, your name. You've been in this world the moment you saw the medallion. All I'm doing is giving you the chance to understand your place in it. I stepped back, my breath shallow, heart pounding in my chest. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask to be a part of whatever this is. You didn't have to ask, he said calmly, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. This has always been your path. You just didn't know it. I felt a surge of anger rise within me. This isn't my path. You don't get to decide my life for me. For a brief moment, he didn't respond. His expression was unreadable, but then he spoke, his tone softer, almost understanding. I never said it would be easy. But nothing worth having ever is. What I'm offering you is a choice, not an ultimatum. You can walk away, forget all of this, and go back to your old life. But I promise you, your name, you will never be the same. You'll never be able to forget what you've seen, what you've learned. His words hung in the air, heavy with the truth of what he was saying. I knew he was right. If I walked away, I would be haunted by the questions, the mysteries that he had just opened up. But if I stayed, what would I be walking into? Stay with me, he said, his voice low and compelling. Let me show you the bigger picture. Let me show you what you're meant to do. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, the silence pressing in around me. My heart raced, every part of me torn between fear and curiosity. I didn't know if I was ready to dive deeper into this world, but the allure of understanding, of knowing more, was impossible to ignore. Finally, I nodded, the decision made. Okay. I'll stay. A small smile tugged at the corners of his lips, but it wasn't reassuring. It was knowing, like he had expected this. Good choice. Now, it's time for you to see what you're truly capable of. He turned and motioned for me to follow him. Come. There's much to be done. As I followed him deeper into the building, the reality of the situation began to sink in. There was no going back now. Whatever was ahead of me, whatever secrets he was about to reveal, I had already stepped too far into the unknown to turn away. He led me through the dark, silent corridors of the building, the air thick with dust and the faint smell of old wood. Each step seemed to echo in the emptiness, amplifying the growing sense of unease that tightened in my chest. As we moved deeper, the building began to feel less like an abandoned structure and more like a hidden lair, carefully constructed to conceal its true purpose. Finally, we reached a door at the far end of the hallway. It was made of solid metal, old and worn, but unmistakably sturdy. He turned to me as he opened it. This is where it all begins, he said, his voice low and serious. Everything you've wondered about, everything you've been running from, is inside this room. It's time for you to see it. I nodded, trying to steady my breath, though I could feel the tremors in my hands. I didn't know if I was ready for whatever was behind that door, but at this point, there was no turning back. As he pushed the door open, the sight that met my eyes took me by surprise. Inside, the room was lit with soft, amber light from old-fashioned lamps. It was a stark contrast to the cold, abandoned corridors we had just passed through. The walls were lined with ancient-looking bookshelves, filled with thick, leather-bound volumes, maps, and various oddities, some I couldn't even recognize. It looked like a cross between a private library and a secret archive. In the center of the room was a large table, and on it, there were multiple documents, photographs, and what looked like blueprints. But what caught my attention most of all were the items spread across the table. The pieces of a puzzle I couldn't quite make sense of yet. He stepped into the room, moving toward the table. This is where the real work happens, he said, picking up a thick folder and flipping it open. Everything you see here is part of the legacy. The secret society that's been hidden in the shadows for centuries. And now, you are a part of it. I stepped forward cautiously, trying to process the overwhelming amount of information in front of me. The photographs were old, faded, and covered with red marks and notes. Some of them were of people I didn't recognize, but others looked strangely familiar. Why me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why am I involved in all of this? He turned toward me, his face serious. Because you were meant to be. You've had a part to play in this from the moment you laid eyes on that medallion. It's not just a necklace, your name. It's a symbol, a key that connects you to this legacy. And you're not the only one who's been chosen. He placed the folder down and walked over to a large map on the wall. It was detailed, covering a vast area, marked with red circles and lines connecting various locations. This is where the organization operates. These are the places that hold the answers. And soon, you'll know what they mean. I tried to make sense of the map, but my mind was spinning. There were so many questions, so many pieces that didn't fit together. Why me? How did I get involved in something so vast, so dangerous? As though reading my mind, he stepped up behind me. You'll understand soon enough. The pieces are all here, your name. The only question left is whether or not you're ready to put them together. I turned to face him, my mind racing. What exactly am I supposed to do with all of this? What's my role in all of this? He met my gaze, his eyes steady and intense. Your role is to carry on the legacy. To unlock the truth. The truth about what this organization is really doing, and how it's been hidden for so long. But it's not just about uncovering secrets, it's about taking action. About changing the world. His words struck me like a blow to the chest. This wasn't just a small mission. This was bigger than I could have ever imagined. This wasn't just about knowledge, it was about power, influence, and perhaps something darker. You'll need to choose wisely, he said, his voice dropping lower. Because once you make your choice, there's no going back. I stood there, staring at the table, at the photographs, at the map, and at the countless documents that spoke of things far beyond my comprehension. The weight of what he was asking me to do pressed down on me, but in the pit of my stomach, I could feel the same pull I had felt since the moment I first saw him. I was already in. There was no going back. The room felt even smaller now, the walls closing in as I stood surrounded by secrets I didn't fully understand but was already tied to. The weight of what I had just learned hung over me like a storm cloud, threatening to burst at any moment. But even though my heart pounded in my chest, I knew there was no turning back. I had crossed a line that I could never uncross, and now, all I could do was move forward. I turned to face him, the man who had led me into this world of shadows and uncertainty. His expression was unreadable, but I could see a flicker of something in his eyes, something that suggested this moment was as pivotal for him as it was for me. You've already taken the first step, he said, his voice steady, as if trying to reassure me. Now, you must decide what comes next. I felt my throat tighten. What exactly are you asking me to do? He took a deep breath, as if preparing for the final reveal. You have the choice, your name. You can walk away, leave all of this behind, and forget you ever came here. No one will force you. But you'll always be haunted by the truth you've uncovered. The knowledge that there's a much bigger world out there, one you can't unsee. I swallowed hard. And if I stay? Then you take your place in the organization, he replied, his tone heavy with meaning. You become part of the legacy. You will have power, influence, and the chance to shape the future. But you will also be bound to the responsibility of that power. You will face things that will challenge you in ways you can't predict. And there will be no turning back. Once you're in for life. My mind spun as I processed his words. On one hand, I could walk away and pretend this whole thing never happened. I could go back to my normal life, free from the burden of these dark secrets. But on the other hand, there was a part of me, deep inside, that wanted to know more. I wanted to see what this organization was really about. I wanted to understand the truth behind the medallion, the hidden legacy, and the mysterious power he promised me. I don't know if I'm ready for this, I said quietly, my voice barely audible. I don't know if I'm strong enough. He stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder with surprising gentleness. No one is ever ready for what's coming. But that's what makes it worth it. You're stronger than you think. And you don't have to face this alone. I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of doubt, but found none. He truly believed in this path. In this mission. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. The decision weighed heavily on me, but deep down, I knew I couldn't walk away. I wasn't just curious anymore, I was already too far in. I had to see it through. I'll stay, I said, my voice steady now. I'll take my place. A small, knowing smile crossed his face, though there was no joy in it. Welcome to the legacy. As I spoke those words, I felt the weight of the decision settle into my bones. I had chosen to step into a world I didn't fully understand, but one that would change me forever. There would be no going back. I had unlocked the first door, and now, there was no choice but to walk through it. The mysteries of the medallion, the secrets of the organization, and the power it held, all of it was now mine to uncover. The future stretched out before me, filled with darkness, but also the promise of something greater. And as I followed him deeper into the room, I realized something. I wasn't just part of this world now, I was destined to shape it.